Health and happiness, everybody. Welcome to the Strength and Motion Show, an online experience curated specifically for the members and fans of Strength and Motion Academy. If you haven't heard of our space before, we are a 24/7 gym in Midvale, Western Australia, and our goal is to provide a space where people can build a strong and mobile body using a functional and holistic health approach to training and life. If this is your first time listening to the show, then thank you for tuning in, and I strongly encourage you to get stuck into the first 5 episodes. These first 5 are a complete deep dive into hashtag the functional way, previously known as the holistic way, which is our 4-pillar approach to achieving health and fitness mastery. As experienced health and fitness coaches ourselves, we have identified movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress as the 4 key areas to always prioritize in order to live healthy and happy. You can do so by simply scrolling to the beginning of this episode list or search the Strength and Motion Show on YouTube and Facebook. Today, we are talking the core of every human on this planet, the breath and their spine. As a world full of human advancement and technology, we mostly overlook the basic needs of our body. If we want to feel more relaxed, more stable, grounded, and strong in our bodies, we must train our spine and our breath. Fundamentally, we are all Homo sapiens, mammals, and vertebrates. To be a vertebrate is to be structurally designed with a vertebral column, or as we know, a spine or a backbone with a spinal cord passing through it. For fun reference, there are 5 vertebrates that are still alive today: fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Which one are we? I think we're the fish. Your spinal column is the superhighway of information passing back and forth from your brain to your entire body. Today, we will talk about how this relates to your busy life as you pursue a fitter and healthier version of yourself. As always, before we start the show, Navar, how are we and how did you know, and how, what did I write here? Let me start that again. As always, before we start the show, Navar, how are we? Did you know that this is episode number 20 and this is closing in on the 2-year mark since we actually launched the podcast?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, you wrote that perfectly. It was just
I just read it like
I was like, oh, yeah.
You're smart, Josh. Good job, Josh. Well done.
Well, you did write it. You wrote it
I
well.
did write it. I
so,
just didn't read it. It just felt like breaking some rules.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm doing really well. It's crazy reflecting upon this being episode 20. 2 years, I think that time has flown by, but also the difference that I have towards the podcast since day one is worlds apart.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely
for sure.
still get nervous doing the podcast and what have you, but not to the extent that I used to in the past. And also the self-belief in the ability to deliver some value or to communicate on the podcast that people want to listen to and gain something from.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have that confidence.
Yeah,
so we get some
absolutely.
great feedback. It's really cool the amount of great feedback
We
that
do.
we get.
Yeah. All from you guys. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, to all the listeners.
Thanks, audience.
And thanks for pulling us aside and giving us feedback as well, whether positive or negative. Thankfully, we haven't experienced any negative yet.
Yeah, not yet. It means we're not doing something wrong.
Yeah, maybe someone's just not being ballsy.
Yeah,
enough
you
to
need haters,
tell us.
apparently.
Yeah, so
if you don't haters in social media, you are doing social media wrong, apparently. So.
yeah. So please hate us.
Where you at? Where you at, haters?
not too much. Don't hate us too much. How are you doing, Josh?
Yeah, not too bad. I've obviously got a colourful knee at the moment.
Yeah.
Not in the concept of the world's sickest knee tattoo, but I've started martial arts recently, and I love learning, and I've always had it on the agenda, on the to-do list to start that journey, and I've created that time to make it happen. And one month in, I'm limping because I don't know. We'll see what we've done, but I just was trying to choke a guy last night because he was trying to choke me, and my knee just went.
No one got choked, but the knee
got choked, but the knee just
got
popped
broke.
out. Yeah, the knee just it made the noise that it shouldn't make, and then it felt the way it shouldn't feel. And then it actually felt okay afterwards, and it's good. The guy was like, "You're all right," and I'm like, "No, but I'm a fitness coach, so I reckon I got this." And he was like, "All right, cool, man. Like you do what you got to do." And we'll just chill for a bit. And I've woken up in the morning. I slept really restless last night, and I was like tossing and turning. But because of the nature of the potential injury that I've sustained, it was like aggravating the knee because I kept rolling over, and every time I'd pick my leg up, it would load the knee in that lateral pressure. But other than that, we're good. We're good. Life's good. Life's good, but life's serious. Life's serious, and I'm feeling good about life being serious lately. It's nice to have a bit of it's nice to being forced to dig my heels in the dirt and push back. in a way, you know, and I really appreciate that. So, yeah, things are good, and I'm very, very, very excited about the next fortnight that we've got coming up.
Yeah.
And we're going, for context, Nav and I are going down south again, to Southwest Australia. We're going to be catching up with Muriel. Muriel, we call her Moo. She's a mad dog.
Yep.
And we're going to be continuing our studies on the fascial system through the Art of Motion crew, which is an extension. Well, I shouldn't say it's an extension, but it's closely intertwined with the anatomy trains work, which is the studying journey that they're on. So, body reading. I can't wait to learn the body reading course. I bought the book like 12 months ago, and I just couldn't. I was trying to figure it out, and I'm like, fuck, I need to go to the workshop. Super keen to figure out how to not blow my knees out in jiu-jitsu. Oh, excuse me. Hold on. Excuse me. Oh, almost choked. I feel like I need to hydrate, actually. Speaking of hydration... I brought...
Are we doing this collectively?
Yeah, we're doing this collectively. So we all know, well, those of you who are regulars, you know we have a mystery sound. A mystery sound. So this is a non-sponsored post. This has got nothing to do with the company of the cans we've brought. It's got more about to the fact that we have some of the greatest jobs ever. And because we have the greatest jobs ever as coaches, our members just bring us cool shit all the time. And my member, one of my clients, he has brought me a 4-pack. I'll hold it up to the camera. This is not sponsored. This is just a product that has been given to me.
We're sellouts.
It's not profit. No. Just a spoiler alert.
No, we're sellouts. Josh is selling out.
It tastes okay. I've already had one. I actually don't want to. I like the product. I don't know if I want to promote it, but anyway. But the cool thing is, it's just I love this stuff. I love stuff that's like overpriced. I don't know what it is. I've never seen it before. It's just a fad. But we've got, with the goodness of hops, craft brewed 0-calorie hop water. It's called Aqualupa sparkling hop water with electrolytes, non-alcoholic, tropical splash, pure sparkling water infused with Idaho 7 and Nectaron hops for a fruity and refreshing hit.
Whoa, marketing.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just like healthy water. Ingredients: carbonated water, hops, yeast, minerals, sea salt, potassium chloride, sodium citrate, L-theanine, magnesium, vitamin C. Oh, vitamin C for freshness. Natural flavor, pyridoxine, and cyanocalabalin. B12. All right. So anyway, the mystery sound is Nav and I. We both get to do an attempt on cracking the cans. That's mystery sound. So this is Josh's mystery sound. Here we go.
Wow, that's so good. Was that so crisp?
That was really...
I thought about messing it up. I'm glad I didn't.
I'm going to slurp it now as well. We're going to do a yucky slurp.
I can't believe we're doing SMR. This is pretty well.
ASMR. SMR is self-myofascial release. That's foam rolling.
That's how little I believe in it.
You idiot.
Let's go. Ready? Got the bubble.
Honestly, when you first did it, I was like, oh, that was a better slurp.
I definitely messed at the start, but then I just kept moving.
You followed through.
Yeah, I had to follow through because the start was rough.
So yeah, cheers everyone. Thanks for that. So
never give up.
This is my bottle of water because I drank all my water on the drive here. So anyway, now that we've had our little fun, we're talking about back onto breath, spine, the mobility, and how to live a better life. So, shifting the focus to the spine and the breath, Nav, can you please share with me your experience within your body as you have learned to understand and now prioritize your spinal health and your breath health, breath quality, breathability, breathability.
I floss every day, so breath health is...
Yeah.
No, but from a spinal health and breath health, I think it's important to... when I was younger, in my teens, I had a lot of back pain. Something that I was able to understand, or able to move through and accept because I had a level of pain tolerance within myself, so I could kind of be like, okay, that's normal. I did go to the chiro quite a bit, but because my back was in a lot of pain. And then throughout my bodybuilding and powerlifting focused training, it only made that worse. My body became tighter and more compressed, especially the spine. I was always having a barbell on my back or centered over my feet, and I would always pull from that position. And I don't think it's necessarily that those movements were the complete reason for that. I think it's a lack of other movements that created that. And that's why I started to play around with breath work and playing around with different multiple planes of movement, because I was doing the other planes of movement and I was doing them in slightly different postures and I was doing them well, but yeah, I was still in pain and it was still impacting my ability to do other movements, especially as I got into Muay Thai. And then that's where I committed to including more movement in different planes, which improved my spine, my breath, doing breath work, and also found better gut health, focus, energy, state, sleep through that journey as well, which we'll dive more into in this practice or in this podcast.
No, that's really awesome. And somewhat similar, but also not somewhat. As far as the external journey that went to, not the same as you, but definitely the improvement of my energy, my state, and my sleep is obviously the same reasons why I prioritize it. And hopefully the listeners are going to start to actually experience those same things within their bodies and truly understand what it feels like to have that shift, because you can't really experience it until you've done it. You can't. Yeah, and doing it takes action. It takes action. It takes work.
Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, we're going to transition to actually getting a head around the concept. What are we actually talking about when we talk about the spine, the breath, and the movement, and why is this all so important? So, the spine and the ribs, they house all the key physical parts of being a human. Our lungs, our heart, and our organs, they all live inside the rib cage. These organs require the ribs to be strong to actually protect them, yet we also need to be soft enough to give them the space to move as necessary, i.e. expansion of the lungs to inhale. So our lungs and our breath control how stressed we are, and how stressed we are tends to control how long we tend to live for. It tends to dictate how we experience all of our moments in our life. Two people can be in the same room, but one person can be calm, one person can be stressed, but the same external event is actually happening. So the more we start to become more familiar with what's actually happening within our body, we can it feels like we can start to affect what's happening outside of us, if that makes sense. It's not, but the way we experience conversations, we experience life, the way we go to work, that fundamentally shifts because you are in a better state of being, state of mind, and state of body. So that's what we're talking about here. The spine and the ribs relate to our posture, our well-being, our performance, and our overall sanity. Without prioritizing these parts of our bodies, that's my projection. Losing my mind.
You said it as if it was in caps as well.
Yeah, no, sanity. There's no caps locks on these texts either. So without prioritizing these parts of our bodies, we are limiting our potential and increasing our likelihood of future pains. So as we start to break down the pros and the cons, let's actually have a look at some of the benefits. What are the benefits of if we were to start prioritizing the spine? Navar.
Yeah, so let's start off with improved breathing. Mm-hmm. So they both, spine and breath obviously comes into play in breath. Breath being breath is quite easy. But the spine as well, in that the position of our spine impacts the position of our lungs, of our organs, of our diaphragm, and that's going to impact our breathing mechanics. So that's where the spine and breath come into play. And with improved breathing, that's when we can experience better sleep, better recovery. We could find our homeostasis, or that deeper parasympathetic state, or that middle ground where we can really rest and allow our tension of our mind and our body to rest. And that will allow for then more action as well, like they kind of come into play, and increase sport endurance. So depending on your breathing mechanics, your posture, then determines the amount of breath and nitric oxide that we're going to get into our body, which impacts vasodilation and energy and performance in sports.
Yeah, I find that really, really fascinating and cool about how the breath really, it's really awesome on both ends of the spectrum. It's really, I hate to call it a secret weapon, but just for the sake of the statement, it's a secret weapon in performance, and it's also a secret weapon in recovery and healing the body as well, which is quite a really amazing thing. I do want to add on a really fascinating experience that I had. It was just a realization that I noticed when I started becoming very interested in learning more about breathing. So obviously that phase of my life, I was hyper aware of my breathing and other people's breathing. And my girlfriend at the time, she was naturally quite anxious, and she had that car crash and the whiplash, and she was holding on to all sorts of tension in her body. And so we used to go to bed at night, and I used to love snuggling. And I remember counting, it was about a 1-to-3 ratio of how shallow her breathing was. She was breathing about 2.5 2.5 to 3 times, like inhaling and exhaling 2 to 3 times faster, or 2 to 3 times more than I was. So it was, 2.5 breaths to my 1 breath, which was really, it was really crazy. But it also, I realized on a very micro level how it like affected our ability to synchronize as a couple as well. It was really, really fascinating experience. But obviously that stuck with me because I share with that now. But I think what's important to understand from that story is that a lot of people just don't know. They don't actually know. They just think that, oh, this is just what a deep breath is for me. It's and I genuinely.
Or they don't even think about the breath at all.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I remember one of our new coaches. She's been doing a lot of bodybuilding stuff, and so she's holding her breath up, and I could see when I was doing her postural assessment what was going on with her. And I said to this, I was like, we're going to do something that I'm going to do it with you, but don't just be aware that you probably shouldn't do it with a brand new client, because sometimes people can cry. And what we did was a form of an abdominal and a diaphragm release. And then she ended up tearing up because she was like, oh, she finally relaxed and took that massive breath that her body's been asking for so long. But because the posing and the work, and she's just been and hustling, that her body's accumulated this tension, and it's got so much more subtly tighter that when it finally came down to actually spending the time with the breath, and all we did for the record, we just laid on the we've got this, like, you know, the pink ball. What do you call the pink ball? Like
the more inflatable one.
Yeah, it's like a kid's toy. It's like
literally, like
it's a volleyball.
A volleyball. Yeah.
It's like a beach volleyball that we actually
a little medium-sized one.
Yeah, we got it. It's a kid's toy. It's a literal beach volleyball, an inflatable one, but it's got a fair bit of thickness to it, so you can put your body weight onto it. And we use it to help the clients massage around the abdominal area and the belly area where the organs are. But we did that, and just 1 or 2 other things specifically around the rib cage. And she teared up. And so I just like sharing these experiences because it really helps people. Hopefully it helps encourage people just to really consider challenging what a deep breath is and what they're familiar with. So other benefits of prioritizing spine and health, Nav?
Well, improved mood, like you just mentioned. If we're to massage the organs and open up the diaphragm and get more breath, which then brings more blood and oxygen and energy and releases tension, that then is going to allow us to fall into a calmer state of mind and body, and then improve our mood, and then improve our focus and energy as well, because the energy isn't just so fixated on being sympathetic and going and dumping all the time. You kind of pull it back a little bit, improve upon our capacity for when it's needed next time. So
exactly right.
Creating that balance between rest and digest and fight and flight.
Yes, exactly right. And the other thing that I learned this from my psychologist when I worked with him was that one of the reasons why our mood improves when we focus on our breath is, as the body is more calmer, the brain is actually getting to a more calmer state, which is actually it can get into a frequency at a speed that it's able to process information faster as well, which helps people have improved mood. A lot of mood issues can come from people's brains just being too full. Yeah. And just
who would have known?
Yeah, just thinking about a million billion things, as I always love to do. Did you say improved organ function?
I've been kind of like talking about that throughout.
I see. Improved organ function, digestion, breathing, and immune function. One thing that's really important to share that some people don't know of is that our organs they're designed to be moved, to move around. They're all inside this gut area. But if you think about, like, if we as humans, we're constantly moving around as well, and so it's like we're in a way like pregnant with our own organs. That as we bend and twist, and you can think about the things we do with our body and how much our organs can get thrown around and bounce around. They need the space to move, and if there's so much tension around the torso, that space isn't there, and that really does affect their function as well.
Yeah, and that's why, the skin is an organ, right? And the fascia is technically a part of the endocrine system.
Yes.
So it's an organ which the fascia is also intertwined with the organ. So the way that our posture sits and the way that our body moves and our tissue moves also impacts the way that our organs move. And then that has a cascading difference in things. So.
Absolutely. Reduced reactiveness. Reduced reactiveness. I really like this one because obviously it's a thing that I've experienced a lot, and this was actually a result of my cold showers specifically. I wasn't aiming for reduced reactiveness by doing cold showers. I was just aiming for general performance benefits by getting into cold showers. But what I then discovered was because of the cold showers it's the training of the skill to regulate myself to stay calm in the face of stress. That as I just became, less reactive. I don't know how to say it. Because I literally did. And less reactive in terms of if someone said something that pissed me the fuck off, I wouldn't snap, where previously I have snapped before. Yeah. But the thing that happened mostly for me is, the loud noises where there's a big bang that just happens within your vicinity. And it's commonly, oh, what the fuck was that? Like, it happens at the gym a lot because people drop weights and some of the training it's required. So we've had a lot of these big bangs and my clients have like freaked out where I didn't even blink. I still felt the shudder, but I didn't blink, and definitely it's because I've been so focused on a regular basis in the middle of a fucking daily 3-minute cold shower. So that's been really good for me. Performance gains?
Yep. So like...
Sorry, I skipped one, didn't I? So, all right. Increased spinal health.
It all threw me off.
I was trying to mix it. I realised they can't even see the script, can they? So
no, but I can.
Yeah, I know. You can. All right, fine. We'll follow the plan.
I don't mind. I was ready to shift. I was ready to pivot. Just threw the pivot in there.
And we're doing the end of the podcast now.
Yeah. Now, goodbye.
Increased spinal health, Nav.
Yeah. So we have performance gains. No kidding. Better posture, movement patterns. So the way that the spine sits also determines where everything else sits in relationship to it, right? So the limbs and everything are connected upwards towards the torso, and then you have the spine, and then the ribs, and all these things are intertwined. So a whole entire physical body and fascial system and muscular skeletal system are all dependent on one another.
Correct, yeah.
And so we mean better posture in a sense of creating movement patterns or relieving pressure where we don't want that.
Correct.
So that's where you get better posture and movement patterns that are resourceful towards you and your goals, especially around the shoulders and hips. So a lot of people are dealing with bursitis and issues within the hip and the shoulder. So including the knee even, and where the knee tracks depends on the spinal health. Reduced back pain, that's a massive one because scoliosis or like small cases of scoliosis are pretty common. And so being able to shift that has reported less back pain for those individuals and increased stability through the spine and breath as well.
Yeah, beautiful. That's very good. Performance gains.
Yeah, so like we're just talking about with spinal health, you have better movement, you have a better stability because you could breathe deeper into your diaphragm, your lungs, which creates internal intra-abdominal pressure. Will typify all the little muscles around the spine and allows you to kind of hold that stable and move with it as well. So
yes, definitely.
These improve like your movement in the performance that you're focusing on, including strength, endurance, efficiency of movement as well. So that's the thing with sport, right? Like if it's baseball and you're throwing a ball, or you're boxing and you're throwing a 1-2, or a Muay Thai and you're throwing a kick or a knee, there certainly is for each individual a more effective and efficient sort of movement pattern that you could kind of keep training and keep ironing out, which will create more efficiency.
Yes.
And I think we want to do that with our everyday lives as well. Like how do you walk? What sort of things do you do for work? Do you have stairs at your home? And train for those things to create efficiency. Otherwise, every single day is going to be such a hassle because you're walking inefficiently for what you're doing and what you want to achieve. So.
Yeah, definitely.
So performance gains in the gym and in life.
Yeah, definitely. That most of my performance gains in the last 12 months has been as a result of my spine and my breathing priority and gaining, especially for running, which is my main discipline at the moment, is endurance running and being able to just move more smoothly across the land. Hey?
It sounded like you were going to say like move or like just smoothing.
Smoothing. I'm smoothing everywhere, smoothing myself all over the land. So, definitely, I'm a big advocate of the performance gains as someone who's really had some big performance gains as a result of that focused. Deeper sleep, one thing that we all love, right? Deep sleep. And that is a result of, again, prioritizing all of this. Is, as we talked about, all of these benefits that you're going to be having during the day when you're awake, you're going to be experiencing similar benefits as a result of a more relaxed rib cage, more deeper capacity to breathe. If you're sleeping, your body is trying to get its heart rate into its lowest rate, its lowest state. And in order to do that, the body needs to get as relaxed as possible. And so the more bodily awareness you have around your breathing, your spine, your torso, the more you can even just lay down and surrender into the mattress on your bed in a really comfortable way. A lot of people are having to prop themselves up with pillows here and there to even relax into a deep sleep. And then you have the issue around sleep apnea as well. That's a massive issue for people. So outside of the daily performance stuff, deep sleep is somewhat more impactful than all the benefits. It's really a big, even though we're just touching base on it, I'm just emphasizing that it's really, really big impact of better breathing as well. And I don't sleep with mouth tape, but you have. I'm a natural nose breather, and I've trained that. So I don't have the issue during sleep. But a lot of people use mouth tape. OCN did. I even have friends like Dylan. I don't know if Mia's given it a shot, but Dylan had a go with it and definitely reports better sleep. Even like less snoring or less drooling. Better mouth hygiene in the sense that it doesn't get as dry, because if you're breathing bugs
through your
flying
nose,
in your mouth.
Exactly. You're breathing through your mouth, just drying out your mouth. Then you're not breathing deep enough, and so all those things. And we know the impact that breathing through your nose has in a positive sense, and how negative mouth breathing is. So the mouth tape does. Everyone that I've had try it, even those that have really blocked up noses, they report that it works well, and eventually they do get breath into their nose. They just got to trust it. You got to trust that your body will learn how to do that.
Yeah, cool. Very, very good. And the last one is increased capacity to handle stress, which is what we talked about. It's effectively an extension of reduced reactiveness. Reactiveness is when we are responding, I wouldn't call it negatively, but maybe responding immaturely to stress. Unresourcefully, yeah. You're just jumping into a stressed out space. So your increased capacity to handle stress means that not only can you handle more stress, but if you get hit with a stressful moment, you can bring yourself back down to a calmer state faster than you naturally would, and that saves you a lot of time and energy in the long run, which is really, really good. Let's just pause for a quick camera reset, and then we'll be back right into it. Oh, hold on. Mystery sound.
Let's turn the volume up.
Yeah, turn the volume up.
Right.
Go on, hit us with one, Nav.
All right, let's go the green. Oh, fuck.
Green.
Oh,
Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Aqua Lupa.
buy it today.
Aqua. We're back. Okay, so we're going to jump into really like breaking down and give you some action items to get into, because that's the most valuable part of the podcast. But we really want to help you understand if this is you. Is this you? Are you someone that naturally falls in the category of someone who's not prioritizing their spine and their breath? Because it's often not instinctual. When people come into the gym, they tend to go towards a different set of goals, such as being too focused on aesthetic goals. People come in and they're so focused on getting bigger, getting thinner, getting leaner, that they're not willing to spend the time doing things like breathing drills, doing things like mobility, or doing things like slowing. I'm going to say it. Oh no, here we go. Slowing the down so that you can just become more calmer. What else is a common example or a reason why people don't prioritize their spine and mobility?
Spine and breathing? Pretty much the same you just said about aesthetic goals, but performance goals, and that could come from a place of fear or doubt or concern that they're not doing enough, and then so whatever time that might be useful doing recovery then is put into doing more work, and then in some cases that could be overdoing it, where you might actually want to slow down a little bit, like you just mentioned.
Yes, exactly right. And that also comes into, I think the mentality shifts over time, and this next reason is people not committing enough time or energy towards doing the mobility or something, again, usually because they're so fixated on the other goal. But what people, they tend to they tend to neglect the reason, then get humbled anyway, is that like, I don't want to do the prehab, the rehab. I don't want to do this extra stuff that harmonizes my training. Or if they've got 3 days to train, they'd rather do 3 days of lifting or 3 days of exercising as opposed to 2 days and then one like recovery movement or sauna day or something like that.
Yeah.
But what they'll find is they'll start clocking up a couple of weeks in a row of training 3 times a week, and then boom, there's some sort of injury or there's some sort of burnout phase or some sort of something's manifested in their life that stops them dead in their tracks.
Yeah.
And then they have to take a week off or 2 weeks off, or they're going to do 3 weeks at a half intensity, and it averages out in the end that it's still the same. So really, people that don't prioritize it, people who find out they have to do it. What else, Nav?
Yeah, we have overly intense time pressure goals, which is funny enough. I was just thinking about that as you were talking. It's pretty much impatience. Like people aren't patient upon their body or their progression, and so they go at it maybe a little bit too aggressive, maybe with a little bit of disdain or hate for the process of rehab or training or recovery, and then all their training just then becomes more grueling, more hateful, or more despised and resented, and then people aren't intentional in the lifting, they have injuries. So especially if you set an intense time to achieve something, then sometimes you'll do whatever it takes to do that. Sometimes it'll pay off, but in other times, like, is it really worth it?
And it's often at the sacrifice of health.
Yeah.
And a lot of performance is at the sacrifice of health, especially if it's time-based. I've got a client doing it right now. We're doing this like an 8-week challenge because their honeymoon's in 8 weeks. And so we're just smashing it out. And I said, look, the fastest way to do it is the unhealthy way. And he was like, well, let's do a little bit unhealthy, but mostly. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's do it. So we're putting him on lower calories than I prefer to put someone. And it's a stretch for me, but I also know that if that's where his head's at, that's where his head's at. And that's what he wants to do. So he's an adult. He's allowed to eat little if he would like to, as long as he's aware of what the downsides are to it. Another one is, for me, is not valuing the learning process. It really, in summary, is the outside in approach versus the inside out approach. We tend to, when we're in the earlier stages, where we're focusing on the outside and we want to look good before we tend to want to feel good. But when we value the learning process, that's what doing the spine and the mobility is. It's learning about your body and expanding your sense of self-awareness, and that allows you to feel better on the inside, and then you will start to look good on the outside as a result of that. But there's a small amount of wisdom that is required for that, and most of the time the wisdom comes from failing by doing it the other way around, by focusing on the outside in first. What else, Nav?
Results are often felt not seen, and so if they're measuring it off a certain result and they're not seeing it in the way that they want to be seeing it, then they could give up on it.
Exactly.
And I don't think a lot of people really understand the benefits of rest or the benefits of being calm or being grounded because they're so fixated on the anxiety and the excitement, and so they might not even be aware that that is a positive. Yeah,
exactly right. And not all spines that look good feel good, and that's why it's easy to just bypass a lot of our mobility issues, because you can still train push-ups, for example, on busted shoulders. It just means your busted shoulders are just getting worse. But if you can hide that for the time being, and that's okay with you, then that's what a lot of people tend to do. And last one.
Life is too busy and chaotic.
Oh, there's 2 there.
Skipping the script again. You're tricking me again, eh? But so life is too busy and chaotic, being that it sometimes is a reality, sometimes it could be an excuse, and it's definitely something that I know I've utilized, we all have, but kind of using busyness and chaos as an excuse to not take responsibility.
Correct.
And I'm like, if in your heart and in your truth that is you're genuinely too busy to look after your health, and looking after your health and your spine and breath is not a positive thing in your life, then so be it. Like, we're not talking to you, but if you're someone that that will benefit a lot from your breath work and your spine work, then maybe not falling into the excuse of life being too busy is the right way to go for you.
Definitely. And that's really it, is really what we're trying to get is we're encouraging you to prioritize this and get excited about prioritizing this and really getting to experience the benefits that come from prioritizing the breath and the spine and making it a really core part of your training. No pun intended. That's the core part. The core part of your training, spinal system. So what we're going to do now, we're going to break down some of these key parts for you. We've really captured the essence of what we're trying to share with you, but we're going to try and dial this down for you and, effectively land the plane and give you some components of the body and your life that you can work on. And hopefully you can finish this podcast feeling excited and ready to take action. So the first part of this spine breath unit we're talking about is the spinal cord and the nervous system. So here we're focusing mostly on the skeletal and the nervous system here. We're talking mostly about the physical structure of the spine and the nervous system, which is the thing that hosts the communication signals of the body. The nervous system is effectively a series of cables, these just wires that run around the whole entire body, and they plug into everything, but they all lead back to the brain. And that leads into the computer, the brain, and the brain processes that information, and then we act accordingly through our behavior and our actions. So most of you hopefully have heard of a career path called chiropractic or a chiropractor. And the chiropractic practice is built around this concept of the relationship between the spine and the nervous system. The spine houses the central nervous system or the spinal cord, and that spinal cord is the superhighway, which shares all the electrical impulses that travel from the brain to the rest of the body. So if you imagine like just a tree for a moment, and you can see how you've got the tree trunk. You've got the tree trunk, and if you view the tree's root system, how it splits out and it penetrates deep into the earth, and then it fans out, and it even looks like an upside down tree when you zoom out and look at the whole tree root system. But what it is you've got one thick trunk that breaks off as it penetrates into the ground, it breaks off to all these thick roots, and then from that roots break off more roots, and then from those roots break off more roots, and then in the top half of the tree into the foliage you've got the same thing where it's like branches that break off into little branches as well. So the tree trunk is effectively the spinal column and the brain. And then all these branches, you've got a branch that goes through the arm, into each arm. Branch goes into each limb as well, and then goes off into the fingers and the toes, and it jumps out through each level of where the vertebrae are through the spinal cord, and it plugs into each part of the torso. So what the chiropractic practice is really assessing how well signals travel through the spine. And whenever there's issues with the spine or kinks in the spine, they can measure through their testing protocol whether there is a dip in reaction speed or there's a dip in coordination, and they're trying to straighten the spine in a way that the signals can travel better between the brain and the body so things can function. And all in all, it sounds very hopefully it doesn't sound very complicated, but what I'm getting at is that there's a reason why a whole entire career can exist around the spine and the nervous system. There's actually multiple careers that exist around it, but what I want you to understand is that structurally, your spine needs to be really good. Your spine needs to be really good because if there's any issues with that, that will affect the speed of which your signals are traveling, and that affects all sorts of coordination, proprioception, which is bodily awareness. And people that have poor signal travel, they're not good at throwing, catching, they bump into things, they're wobbly, they roll their ankles all the time, or they're not ambidextrous, like they're really one-sided, they're one-side dominant. They can do something really well on one side and something not so good on the other side. So your coordination is really important to build strength in that. And the way we do it is we find ways to incorporate challenging things for the nervous system and treat the nervous system like it's a muscle. So when you train for spinal strength and mobility, that is a fundamental practice that captures all of that. Breath work and playing with the breath during training, that really helps. We're talking about building awareness around the rib cage. Lots of rotational and single-legged work in the gym. The more rotational work you do, the more the ribs are forced to twist and move, and the spine is forced to twist and move, and that keeps things very open and functional. Outside of that, it's exploring activities which force you to regulate your nervous system, such as breath work, ice baths, cold showers, saunas, and deeply seated silent meditation. And those things that make us more uncomfortable and make us bring us up this more stressful state, or as you've heard in other episodes of our podcast, the sympathetic state. We need to keep our spinal cord smooth and flowing and our breath really well, strong and coordinated, so we can keep our body nice and calm and coordinated through the breath. So that's my summary on the spinal cord and the nervous system. So Nav, do you want to take it from here and talk more about specifically the breath?
Yeah. So real simple. We breathe in oxygen and CO2, right? And that's all we're talking about is the breath. The breath is us technically breathing in oxygen, CO2. We do this through the diaphragm, through the lungs, through our airways, through our sinus pathways, and then also with the moving of the organs. And there's also lots of tissue movement, being the diaphragm being a muscle in itself as well. So there's a lot of movement in the body that then incorporates the breath. So the breath is not just oxygen and CO2. It is also the muscles, the organs, the airways, the sinuses, and also compounds like nitric oxide that's also released as we breathe through the sinus, through the nose, which helps improve vasodilation, which helps improve oxygen absorption. And that's why oxygen or breathing is so important, because oxygen helps with the production of energy, and the movement of oxygen through the body helps move energy and produce energy. And so good breathing mechanics allows for more oxygen intake, nitric oxide, therefore greater vasodilation and performance. And also, as we breathe, the diaphragm actually pumps more blood than the heart itself. And we know how important blood is, and the pumping and movement of blood through the body. So I don't think I need to really explain that. But that just shows, like, in brief even, why breath is so important. Then you also have posture improvement and spinal improvement, which we've already kind of covered earlier. So the way that we really improve upon our breathing is practicing breathing. It's probably one of the most simple things. It's like you were mentioning about the different cycles of breath. A lot of people will breathe too much. They take, so ideally the perfect breath is meant to be 5.6 seconds breathing in, 5.6 seconds breathing out. And if you do that for a whole minute, that literally equals out to be 5.6 breaths within a minute. And so that's what we want to look at. I just go off a 6-second count, because 5.6, I'm not going to count. 5.6, yeah. So I just thought we do 6, and you're focusing on 6 breaths per minute. But that kind of gives you an idea of the sort of breathing you want to practice. And that rate of breathing is meant to bring you to homeostasis, which is this perfect middle ground between being relaxed and being in a stress state. You don't want to be either. Sometimes you want to be stressed, sometimes you want to be stressed, but sometimes you want to be in the middle as well. And that breathing pace is what does that for us. Other ways to improve breath is just exercise, like actually physically move our body, do something that gets us breathing and gets our diaphragm moving, our blood moving as our limbs move, because then that moves blood through our limbs. So practice exercising with your breath. So focus on breath and movement collectively, and that will also improve your breath mechanics in general. And then also just your standard daily check-ins. When you're driving in the car, when you're at work, when you're doing a podcast, whenever, just consistently come back to your breath. Especially making sure that you're in somewhat of a breath cycle, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, or depending on what you're doing. But be intentional about your breath.
Brilliant. Very good. And we're shifting back to the spinal structure again, just to, again, talk less about the nervous system, specifically just the bones as well. So again, we are overlapping a lot, but it's because we are talking about the single unit. The spinal structure. What we're talking about is the relationship between the spine, the head position, and the hips position. And we can talk a little bit about the shoulders, but the shoulders float. The shoulders float on the rib cage, and they're attached by muscles, which is why we always prioritize. Whenever anyone has shoulder or hip issues, we actually focus on the spine first still, because the shoulders are suspended on the spine. So spine's always related to it. So we're really focusing mostly on the spine, the ribs, the head, and the hip. Hip is actually the pelvis, if you're not familiar with that. And what this does, it allows a greater space for breath, and that's the relationship between, if the spine is in good alignment, then the ribs that come off the spine are therefore in good alignment, and then you have better movability. These ribs can fluctuate, and the spine can also fluctuate very subtly, but fluctuate with the breath as well. It opens up for more patterns through rotation, as a matter of fact, rotation and flexion. So the spine is not just a stiff rod. The spine actually twists a bit, it bends a bit, and there is an optimal way for it to twist, and it's an optimal way for it to bend in a way that makes us run better or move better. And the fancy word is ambulate. Ambulate means just to traverse across land. So forward ambulation is called walking, but the biomechanics of ambulation is what it's called in the textbooks. You cannot have healthy movement without good rotation, and the relationship between the spine connects the kinetic energy from the arms to the legs. I don't need to go deeper into that. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. You don't need to know what that means. If you do know what it means, we are discussing things about punching mechanics, striking, throwing. That's where the rotational force really comes into play. The last one is that it really brings us confidence and courage, which then triggers a trail of biochemical benefits such as increased testosterone, decreased cortisol, which is effectively the foundations of our mood being picked up. So we know that there's a relationship between mood and body language and posture. And so as we improve our spinal positioning, we're therefore just standing up taller, we're standing up straighter, but we actually, in that moment, we feel actually calmer and we feel actually stronger because we are. And so when we get ourselves into those positions more, biochemically, we are naturally improving our hormonal template and your well-being in that moment. And that's a really, really, really cool thing. So the way we actually work with that is to bring in more dynamic movement. And another way to explain dynamic movement is moving in multiple planes. And think something that's robotic is not a lot of movement planes. Someone like a really advanced dancer or a really advanced martial artist, those are someone who's really effective at being in multiple planes and multiple positions. Is that we are very dynamic as humans. Our shoulders go all sorts of directions, our hips go all sorts of directions, and it's important to at some point of your training journey to step away from traditional lifting. There's still benefits from traditional lifting, but integrating movements that complement push, pull, kick, run, jump, climb, roll, tumble, flip, whatever it is what you do. But we need to, you really need to remember that the world, you need to see the world as your playground in a way, and you want to find ways for you to move smoothly through it rather than have constant resistance. And I'm not talking about metaphorically, I'm talking about physically. So the last one is to, the last two, is to practice doing 360 breaths. Do you want to elaborate on 360 breaths, Nav?
Yeah, so 360 breath around the ribs. So not just breathing into the ribs from the front of the rib cage where there's no expansion from the sides of the back, but breathing into the diaphragm, which is like underneath our ribs or inside our ribs more so. Mm-hmm. We want to breathe into that like a big balloon and have it blow up into the front of the ribs, the side of the ribs, the back of the ribs. And that's how the core isn't just your six-pack abs at the front. Your core... What?
I thought it was just aesthetics.
Yeah, it's just your...
I thought there was no function to do with the core whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it's just whether you got a six-pack.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But it's it is the six-pack, but then it's also the obliques, the sides, and it's also the QLs and your rectors at the back of the spine, and then also deeper in, like your transverse abdominis and your diaphragm, your multifidi, all these smaller muscles around the spine. All of these are important upon holding our spine and structure up against gravity or against certain movements that we're doing. And that's what I mean by breathing in a 360, is learning how to get internally into our body and expand it like a balloon that allows us to contract or move.
Yeah, definitely. That's really, really cool. I love that. And what you've written here, keeping the spine tall, that comes into play with pretty much everything. Is the spine has its own ability to hold itself tall and erect. It's funny to say that, but there are actually a group of muscles called spinal erectors, and that's what they do. They, if you imagine how a sunflower would wilt, the spinal erectors reverse that movement. So they literally pick the spine up and allow it to hold up nice and tall. And that has a really big effect on our mood when we do that. And you need to be in that position to execute things like practice doing 360 breaths and all of that. Finish off on posture, mood, and body language, Nav.
So this one will be pretty easy. It's very similar to what we just covered in the spinal structure, but there are some slight differences. So what it does include is the spinal structure. being posture, mood, body language is also like the rhythm and the depth of the breath, which is, like we mentioned, is the rhythm is the pace of the breath, and that impacts our body language and our mood. Then we also have mood, body language being the mood, the emotions, the feeling, and the beliefs that we also hold, because that also impacts our posture and mood and body language, and they coincide with one another. So like you mentioned, our body language impacts our mood, which then impacts our beliefs. So they're one and the same in many ways. And same thing as physical tension. Our body language, like we might be crossing our arms or holding our hands real tight or gripping ourselves all the time. That is an impact on our mood and our body language and posture, which then dives into the reason why these are so important. Is firstly, our posture, our spinal structure then impacts our space to breathe and for our organs to get massage and move. Same thing as discussed before, opens up for more movement patterns, helps finding that rest state, and also confidence and courage, like increased mood. So it's very, very similar to the spinal structure, but in regards to the benefits. But the differences that we could have on how to work with it outside of the 360 breaths, the spinal tall, keeping the spine tall, but is also learning how to let go of physical tension. And so learning how to actually breathe into a part of our body, bring attention maybe to our fingers, and just making sure that we're allowing our hands to kind of release and go. If we're overly flexed, maybe pull it into more extension and find a middle ground there. Or same thing with spine. We might be overly flexed or overly extended, and learning how to maybe relieve that a little bit. So that's how we could work on posture and body language. Also, beliefs, already discussed how beliefs impact it, but also question your beliefs and find beliefs that serve your body and your mind.
Yeah.
So if you want to achieve a certain goal with your physical body and your posture, but you don't want to show off your body, or you don't actually want to be seen as being confident or courageous, then that instant belief is going to shift your ability to be confident, and will also shift your ability to hold a certain posture. And so that's where beliefs could come into play with posture and body language. And same thing as self-awareness and self-discipline is we've got to be aware of how we want to hold ourselves and what we want to be doing and the posture that we want to have, and then we've got to be self-disciplined upon that. Like it is not that there is discomforts in moving our body and training our body and going. If you're already in a really poor posture, kyphotic, like your back is rounding over, or you have really bad lower back pain, in reality, it is going to be uncomfortable to rehab that or correct that. Rehab isn't a comfortable thing. Rehab is known to be very uncomfortable. So you also got to put in the discipline of overcoming that discomfort to eventually, hopefully, find more comfort by better posture and health and breathing.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said, Nav. So in summary, we've just covered the spinal cord and the nervous system, and we've talked about how we need to manage our nervous system so that it can communicate effectively. And we do so by managing our stress response, drinking lots of hot water and electrolytes, and just being aware, practicing the awareness. And we do that by focusing on the breath as well, using the breath drills that Nav spoke about, especially doing the 360 breathing and different breathing and meditation types. You've got the spinal structure that we discussed and how that relates to our general posture and our head position, our hip position, our mobility. And then that relates to our posture, our mood, and our body language, which starts to bring into the conversation of our biochemistry, our physical well-being, and our emotional health and our psychological health when Nav signed off with self-awareness and discipline. So,
Yo.
Navar, do you have your mystery item?
I do. You know what? I actually think I've already done this one before, but it's my cross. Have I done this one before?
I don't know.
I might not have, but
maybe. It rings a bell. No, you've talked about it.
I think I've definitely talked about it, but I don't know if I did it as a mystery item. But
no.
The reason why I'm doing it as a mystery item is because there's moments where I don't put it on, and it's out of this concern of being seen as being religious and being a Christian or a Catholic or Anglican and what have you. Not that I'm necessarily against any of that at all, but there was a level of fear of being seen as that. And it's also, that's not what I'm wearing it for. I'm wearing it because it's out of respect for my grandfather, who was an amazing role model. And every single time, because he was religious, he was a priest for 50 years, so he was very religious. But he never put that upon anyone. He always, the most kind-hearted, he was always there to for other people. He took people into home. He did put so much energy into the community and other people, and me and my brother and my family. But that's why I wear it. But the reason why I want to use it as a mystery item is because it reminds me of the importance of recognizing what symbols or what things mean to us and allowing ourselves to express that, maybe even in the face of being judged for it because people misunderstand us. And that's just a part of life. Like, we might get, in most cases, we're always misunderstood. You know, no one really truly knows us. So for us to limit our self-expression or wearing the things that we want to wear or saying the things that we want to say out of fear of being misunderstood, that's what this item symbolizes for me.
Nice.
Which one I want to bring up? A little bit of my own philosophy.
That was beautiful. I love to hear it. That was awesome. That was really good.
Nice. All right, we ready?
Yeah, we're ready. Mystery item. You thought it was going to be that. No. This is my mystery item. This. Nav thought my mystery item was going to be my fidget spinner, which I bought because
Which is now a second mystery item.
You can hear that's a spinner, but that's just my little thing that I play with anyway. $11 on Amazon. I brought kinesiology tape. So it's a stretchy tape because it's hilariously. It's the fine timing. I've just wrapped my knee in it because of the injury that I've got. But it's actually the exact same tape that they use for the hostage tape, the mouth tape. So this is the same tape that I used when I did my mouth breathing half marathon. I haven't mentioned, but I will mention now that one of my future goals is to set a world record of the world's fastest mouth taped marathon. So I'm going to wrap my mouth up so I can't breathe and then run a really fast marathon. But this tape is flexible, and because it flexes with the body, this is the same tape that we use to help stabilize a knee, to use as the mouth breathing tape. And if you are practicing breathing drills, you can put patches on different areas, especially around the back. And because it stretches, you just try and breathe in a fashion that stretches it, and you use it to build awareness. So it costs like, $12 from the shops, but it's kinesiology tape. It is stretchy tape. So that is my mystery item. Nice. That's us for a...
It's ice and shade in the cup.
Fuck, I hate that one.
Oxymoron.
We need to get that. All right. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. It's been an absolutely fantastic episode. We can't wait for our next episode 21. We are closing in. I think we're technically at 2 years soon, but almost at 24 episodes. So we're getting close. Thanks very much for tuning in. We can't wait to bring you the next episode. We will let you know what that is on our social media very soon. Peace out. Much love. See you, everybody.
Goodbye. Oxymoron.
Oxymoron. Yeah.